Good morning, YouTube. No bad days. I have my coffee. Beautiful day outside. Midwinter. No, I say midwinter. Coming out of winter. I was just talking to my guest off camera then, and it's a beautiful day. I'm not going to futz around anymore because there's somebody at my front door, and if I hit the little button over here that says ding dong, I will have a look who's at my front door, and it's no other than Mr. Carl Verheyen. Hey, Carl.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, man. I'm doing fine.
Good to see you today. Yeah,
you too. Man, have you been doing any gigs? I just did a little applause then, and some of the guests that I've had lately have been really enjoying that because they're like, "Oh, I miss that, the sound of applause."
Yeah, I know. Well, I just did a 5-day tour on the West Coast of America. I started in LA, then the gear went up to Seattle, and from there down, we hit Seattle and then another place near Seattle, Bainbridge Island. And then we came down and did, we had a day off. Then we did Redding, California, which is kind of northern central California. And then we did the Bay Area, San Francisco area, a place in Oakland. And that was really fun. It was just great to see people again. And we drew 300 people in Seattle, but I heard that a number of my fans that come and see that show from up in Vancouver, Canada, couldn't get in because the border was closed. Yeah, from but why are they keeping Canadians out? They're safer than we are.
Yes. And who was that playing with?
That was playing with my band.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was. I took Bernie Dressel on drums, and he's one of LA's busiest drummers. He's pretty wonderful, and he's got his own band called the Bernie Dressel Big Band, the BBB, or Bernie's Big Band, and it's an amazing group. I've played with it a few times. It's really fun. So I took my usual bass player is a guy named Dave Murata, and so he did it. And then I used, except he couldn't do. So he did LA, but he couldn't do the trip. He had a stem cell transplant last year.
Wow.
From, some gnarly cancer thing.
Yeah.
And his doctor doesn't want him to fly yet, so he couldn't do it. I took a guy named Tom Child, who's on my new record. And then I brought a keyboard player that also plays guitar and sing as kind of a utility man.
Yeah.
And that was really fun for me because a lot of my songs have, almost all of my songs have more than one guitar on them. Some have as many as, 16 guitar parts layered in various ways. So he could play acoustic or electric or keyboards and, very valuable. Because a lot of my touring I do as a trio.
Yep. Nice. Nice.
I got a great big rig, and I can organically change sounds without one cutting off, like with MIDI or channel switching. It's really fun. Things bleed over into the next sound, and I'm about to go to Europe for 5 weeks, and this tour will be with Chad Wackerman on drums.
Nice.
And Alfonso Johnson on bass. So.
Wow.
It's going to be a real all-star trip, man. I'm really looking forward to it. So,
isn't it great just playing music and just being able to see the world through playing music? That was always a goal of mine when I was younger. I didn't want to be a rock star or anything, but it's just like, man, if I could get some travel in and have that be on the back of playing music.
Yeah, it is one of the great things. I know it's one of the benefits because at the end of a tour, you just don't, a month later, you don't remember any of the hardships. The fact that there was actually an 8-hour drive to get down to Austria for one night. You don't remember that. You remember, we got to Austria, we had a great dinner, and then the next day we got to lay in and then play a wonderful gig. And you just remember it was a wonderful hotel by the lake, and the people were very cool. And you just remember the good things. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Carl, how did it all start for you, mate? What sparked the passion for the electric guitar for you?
I mean, as a 9 and 10-year-old living in LA, there was a lot of surf music shows on TV. There was all the local stations had stuff like, just surfing shows, half-an-hour surfing shows, and the sound would be like this kind of a thing. And so, I don't know, that knocked me out. And then, of course, when the Beatles played on Ed Sullivan, that's when every guitar player anywhere near my age went, forget it. That's what I want to do for a living. And I had some cousins who had They were older than me. There were 3 teenage girls, and they had posters of George Harrison and stuff on their ceiling and all over their room. So I just kind of went, well, yeah, that's the job for me. And I got my first guitar at age 11. And I really never stopped, never looked back, never thought I would do anything else for a living, and just played every single day. I got my first guitar and my first lesson at age 11. Wow. And it got to a point where my parents would have to say, quit playing guitar and go out there and play some basketball with your friends, But I needed to listen to the radio until, Mr. Tambourine Man by the Byrds came along, or, something by the Stones or whatever. So I just got captivated at a really young age.
Nice. And did you get lessons at an early age, or did you learn things by yourself?
My first lesson cost $2.50, and it was from a guy who lived with his parents, but he was in a band called the Peanut Butter Conspiracy, and they had albums out, and they were on the radio like a local band, right? I got lessons from him for a while. Then I moved to another place, then a third place, and then I just started learning on my own.
Yeah.
But years later, though, I had the real good fortune of being in a band with this great jazz musician, his wife, and his name was Ron Echte. He's a local great jazz player. Probably getting pretty old by now. Got to be like, in his late 70s, maybe almost 80. But he was kind of a mentor because I would bring his wife home from the gig. And I'd say, your wife wants to do My Funny Valentine, but she does it in A minor. Can you show me the cool changes? And he'd go, well, you want the Bill Evans changes or the Herbie Hancock changes, or the Herbie Hancock changes that he did with Miles, or do you want my changes? And I'd say, well, let's start with your changes. And so I'd learn a lot of harmony that way every night. I'd stay up till 4 a.m. with him, just jamming a little bit. And then there was a lot of jazz going on in my early years were all rock and roll, and I played in a lot of bands. My little band called Mad Shadow, we played opposite Van Halen about 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
On the same little bill, and yeah. I remember Eddie Van Halen dropped my Les Paul from about this high into the case, just bang. And I said, Ed, what are you doing? And he goes, oh, sorry, man. And it bounced, and thank God the neck didn't break, because those were a lot of money for a kid,
Yeah, absolutely, and particularly a Gibson, which is notorious for the headstock snapping off.
Exactly. So what happened was I was playing in all these bands, and then at some point I was 17, and my parents took us out to dinner in a restaurant in Pasadena, where I grew up. And as we were walking out after dinner, I see this guy in the bar singing and playing his acoustic guitar. And I went, I could do that. So I asked the waitress, can I audition for this kind of a thing? And she goes, yeah, come back tomorrow when the manager's here. So I came back, and I had learned how to play Here, There, and Everywhere by the Beatles, which is like... that kind of thing, just solo guitar.
Yep.
Right, just a little solo thing on my acoustic. And then I sang a few tunes like Crazy Love by Van Morrison and Both Sides Now by Joni Mitchell. And he goes, you're hired. And you have Sunday and Monday. And I'm making $35 a night, living at home. But he wouldn't let me start for 3 months until I turned 18.
Oh, okay.
That was kind of interesting. Then I started, and I'm doing that for like about a year or so. And pretty soon he advanced me to Tuesday through Saturday. So I got the $75 a night gig, still living at home, going to Pasadena City College, studying music and stuff. And then one day this guy walks in, and he goes... he said, I like the way you play. He was an older guy, just some older gentleman. He goes, I like the way you play, kid. You ever want to get together and jam? And I said, sure. How about tomorrow? So I go to his house, and he pulls out some sheet music, and I wasn't a reader or anything at this time. And the first chord was F major 7th, right? And I knew that chord. The second chord was D minor 7 flat 5. And so I go, let's see. Here's a D minor 7th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is it this? And the guy goes, yeah, but you probably want to finger it like this. Of course, this is a much better, thicker voicing. You could use the open string. Of course, if you want the flat 5 on top, that's got nice voicing. A lot of people want the flat 5 on the bottom. You can put the 7th on top, the 7th on the bottom. This is probably my favorite voicing. This is probably the most common voicing. You can put the root on top. This is another voicing. Of course, this is the same as an F minor 6, so every F minor 6 you have. So my brain just exploded because it was like looking over the wall and seeing this huge plateau of information, because I already thought I was good.
Yeah.
I could play this acoustic stuff, I could play Crossroads, I could play Stairway to Heaven, all the big guitar type stuff at the time, but I had no idea what he was doing there. So anyway, I started down the long dark highway of jazz in my 20s, and I started learning standards and Charlie Parker heads and, Coltrane tunes and Miles things. I learned all kinds of stuff and played 5 nights a week playing jazz. I even went to Berklee College of Music for 1 semester and had more stuff and took lessons from a few guys, and that's going along through till about 1980. And then in 1980, I've told this story a million times. So if you YouTubers are hearing this, sorry, I'll make it quick. In 1980, I was driving my car on Laurel Canyon Boulevard here in LA, and I heard this amazing Joe Walsh solo come on the radio, and it was his solo in a tune called "Those Shoes" by the Eagles. It's kind of an obscure Eagles tune, album cut. I think it's on the Long Run album, and it's in the key of E minor, and it is powerful. I mean, I had to pull my car over, going, I can't believe the state of rock guitar has come so far since I left off, 5 years ago in my jazz odyssey from Spinal Tap. Jazz. Anyway, I can't believe how far it's come. And so it hit me like a ton of bricks in that I just needed to learn everything I dig, whether it's country music or bluegrass or rock and roll or rockabilly. And I really, heavy metal. I just learned to bend notes again. I got out my Mike Bloomfield records and my Albert King records, and I said, man, I need to phrase like that. I need to learn that. And I even studied some classical guitar at the time too. And, just decided that if I dug it, I would learn it. And I'm still on that quest today. Like it's more for today. Nowadays, it's more for harmony and songs. If you hear a song on the radio that you've always dug, you've always loved it, you go, why the hell don't I know that? I'm going to go home and learn that. And that's what I would do nowadays. I'd come home and, just figure out some old obscure Beach Boys tune or, just something that I've always liked it. I don't know why I like it. So I'm going to listen to it and try to figure out why I like it and learn it.
Awesome. You mentioned before about, the jazz player throwing you all these different chord shapes and everything and just realizing what you don't know. I've come to realize there's a thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect, and that's people use that to describe dumb people not knowing that they're dumb. But it's not just that. It's the better you are at something, the more you realize what you don't know about a subject.
The more you know, the more you don't.
Exactly. And that's something I've really discovered.
The opposite side of the coin is some people are too stupid to appreciate how stupid they are.
Yeah, exactly the same thing. Yeah. And that's become like that for me, where I've just become really sick of my own playing, and I'm always looking around at other people who play completely different to me. I think I'm just such a product of that late 80s post Van Halen style of playing. And when I hear somebody else playing jazz or country, which I cannot play a lick of either, it really pricks my ears up. And it's one of those things that's just never ending.
Yeah, the country thing is really fun to get into because it's real virtuosic playing, and there's a lot of crossover that I learned from playing jazz, and from playing blues. Like a blues guy, he'll go like. So, just playing a little blues in A, the country guys will take that same lick, get a different tone, and go, and they'll go, so I'm playing that same chord, and it's just there's a lot of crossover between different styles that you can actually advance the style itself by, like I listen to this guy Tony Rice, who's a bluegrass dude.
Yeah.
And I hear Pat Martino licks. I hear him doing, like in a key of G, he'll go like, and I go, man, that's right out of a Pat Martino record, So he's advancing bluegrass by cross-pollinating with other styles, and I'm all for that.
Yeah. It's funny. I had Andy Wood on a few months ago, and do you know Andy's playing from Nashville? Yeah. And just sitting around before we went live, he's noodling on his guitar, and he's playing the Crossroads, but the Steve Vai Crossroads suite, and just flawlessly, just his picking and everything. Yeah. And he comes from a bluegrass background, but incorporating that kind of thing into his playing, and he wasn't even trying. He was talking to me. He wasn't even thinking about what he's doing. And I'm just like, wow, listen to that.
That's awesome, man. I love it.
Yeah, man, you got the coolest lens flare going on. I saw you just move your camera before, but just before you did that, the sun was coming in. It looks so cool.
Should I change it or should I?
No, we'll go with that. That's cool. That's cool.
All right. Yeah. I mean, it's late afternoon and the sun's right over there. So.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So you mentioned that you went to college as well to study music.
Well, I really didn't. I got no degree. I went to 2 years at Pasadena City College, and I was in classes with David Lee Roth and some of those guys.
Cool.
And it was mostly it was kind of a classical music appreciation, piano and stuff like that. And I bailed. I left town to go on the road before graduating, so I didn't get a degree. And then I followed a girl back to Massachusetts, across the country. And that's where I just decided I'm going to start working. I mean, I need experience is what I need,
Yep.
But then at the end of a pretty much 9-month period, I decided to move to Boston and go to Berkeley. So I did this accelerated summer program, and that's all the music teaching I've had. Experience, college I've had, but. I'm a real self-motivated practicer. I love to practice, and I will practice many different kinds of ways. But one of the ways I like to practice is I keep a lick book, and the lick book is just let's see, should be somewhere here. Yeah, here it is. It's just a book on my music stand that any musical ideas I come up with, here's just the latest page. It's just a couple of lines. I write them down and I put the chord over it and I put the fingering under it.
Nice.
And I've got about 28 volumes of lick books.
Really?
So,
wow.
Yeah. And the way I do it is I'll just play, sometimes I think I kind of find my center as a person in just being able to practice and be by myself and do that, right? So I might just sit down and start playing randomly, like here's a line in E minor. Now I'm going to play a line in D. Now I'm going to play a line in B7. E major. A major. A minor. Something like that. And just let my mind drift like F minor. And just let my mind wander. And sometimes I'll come up with something that sounds like me. And that I'll write down and finger it. Then I'll learn it. For instance, a perfect example, I was playing in F minor. And I came up with this idea. And it's the minor third, right? An A flat, up to an F, up to another A flat, up to the seventh, an E flat, up to the root. So nice for F minor 7. Make it bluesy.
Nice.
Or maybe I could make it a... integrated into pentatonic stuff I already do, or maybe just that one little lick, and then I'll learn it here. So that's just F minor, and that little germ of an idea. Then I go, you know what? That would actually work for a D flat 2 chord. So, and then I go, if I change one note, this is me looking at my lick book and saying, what if I did this? Put a D there instead of, I'll go, it's a B flat 7 chord, so. So you just kind of, your mind wanders, you find something, you start working on it, and then you work it into your playing. That's a great way to practice, and I write it down. Another thing, I might be like, the day after a gig, I might be thinking, man, I had this long solo in F sharp minor, and I just ran out of ideas, you know. I need to sit down on the blank page and write down some ideas in F sharp minor. So I'm kind of thinking F sharp minor 7. Well, I could do this. I do that all the time. How about this? That's cool. But I do that all the time. I'm trying to find something new. What if I use an open string, like the open A string, and go, that's nice. So that line, F sharp, G sharp, and then open A, which gives me a little time to get up to a C sharp, and then go up a minor 6, down a minor 3rd, up a 5th, up a 4th, up another 5th. So it's just kind of, I write down stuff like that so that, well, here's the premise behind it all. This article I read back in the 70s, in a magazine called Contemporary Keyboard. I found it, and I was reading this article by Chick Corea, right? And Chick Corea said, the best of us are only truly improvising 30% of the time. The other 70% we're stringing together stuff we've got worked out.
Yep.
Well, that was a real life-changing sentence for me, because I went, man, Chick Corea, that guy he never repeats himself. He is just constant ideas, On an A minor chord, he just has hundreds and hundreds of things that roll off his fingers, So I started to think, he's got money in the bank that he can draw on whenever there's a moment when A minor comes around or A 7th comes around. He's got dozens and dozens of ideas that he can pull out wherever he is in the range of his keyboard. And so I started taking that to heart. A 7th, right? I got one, and if it's going to be rock, I'm going to change it. And if it's going to be country, I'm going to change it. And if it's going to be jazz, I'll move it around, But anything blues, all that stuff. So
nice.
Yeah, fun. That kind of practicing, if I get a chance to do it, really makes me happy.
Yep. I'm going to have to take a leaf from that book and start writing little things down myself and building up that lick library. Yeah. So it sounded to me like, are you, like when you said F sharp minor, are you basing it firstly on chord tones as you sort of, to set the tone of that chord first, or are you thinking more in terms of scales? How do you approach it?
I'm thinking more of modes,
Yep.
So that lick I just played was Dorian mode, maybe. And I don't know if I played what would be the Dorian note, the natural six. It might have just mostly, yeah, it was kind of Dorian mode without a six is what I did, because there was no D sharp in there. But a lot of pentatonic stuff, because I just love the sound of that, and a lot of stuff that is modal, Mixolydian mode, Dorian mode, Aeolian mode, those kind of things. And you can analyze players, like Pat Martino's a real Dorian mode guy. Eddie Van Halen was more of an Aeolian mode guy. He had that flat six in a lot of his soloing. And, it really gets down to context. If you have an A minor chord going down to F, you're going to play in the key of, well, you could play in the key of F, but if there's a G separating, like in Stairway to Heaven, you're basically in the key of C, because it's the 6 to the 5 to the 4.
Yep.
And all that theory is just to show, it's just to explain why what you did sound cool.
Nice. Cool. I did attend a Frank Gambale clinic when I was quite young that explained the modes in a great way. Yeah, because it was just, I'd always read these articles and they were just throwing numbers at me, this mode is spelt blah, blah, blah. I was just like, how do I use that? And one of the big light bulb moments is when he said, if you see two major chords a tone apart, that's your 4 and the 5 of the parent key. Yeah. And that was a real, and now I'll stumble across songs and go, oh, this is actually in Dorian mode or Mixolydian mode. And
yeah, good for you. That's a really good place to be, because, like I said, it's all there to explain what sounds right.
Yep.
And you can get really, really deep into it. And I just this last tour I did, the keyboard player is a younger guy than me, but he went to this thing called the Dick Grove School of Music. And I said, what was that all about? And he goes, well, Dick Grove has a very specific way of teaching harmony and improvisation. And I go, like what? And he explained that he has a 9 chord family. There's 9 chord families and what to play on each one of these things. And as he explained it all to me, and I taped it all, and it was nothing I didn't know or use, but it was a really logical way to explain it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was very cool, and how the melodic minor can work over a dominant, and how the harmonic minor, works for like the gypsy jazz thing, and how that works. And, it was really educational for me, because I like to hear other people's take on it.
Yeah. What did you say that's called? Dick Grove's?
Yeah, Dick Grove's School of Music, Grove.
I'm going to have to look that up, because there's different things that get explained to you differently, and things that didn't make sense. Like when I talked to Tim last week, he didn't have a grasp on what the caged system was, and I explained it to him, and he just looked at me and went, why has nobody been able to explain that to me before? I keep hearing it, but I totally got that. And it's just like, well, that's me in my simpleton way.
I honestly believe that one should get out of that cage system as soon as possible. You learn pentatonics that way, right?
Yep.
If you take the major key of C, C, D, E, G, A, that's the major pentatonic. I figured out one time that the lowest note in that would be an E, right? So I wanna learn it like this. And here's F. And here's B flat. E flat. A flat. And so when I'm doing A flat major pentatonic, it's also F minor pentatonic, right?
Yep.
Same notes.
Yep.
They're the same notes. So now having that more of a linear approach and more of a, no dark areas on any key throughout the guitar, my F minor lines can be, instead of, they can be, they can take in the whole guitar.
Love it.
And
Love it.
You these clubs and stuff, and you've seen a guitar player play top 3 strings, one position, and then move to another position, and that's his stuff, right?
Yep.
I want it to be continuous and connected, and phrasing like melodically that way. And so, having worked out that pentatonic stuff, major and minor in all 12 keys, I mean, this is many years ago, I set about to learning the entire major scale, which means, do, re, mi, right? C,
Yep.
D, E. And once again, E is the lowest note. So I'm going to go like this. And here's F. And here's B flat. And here's E flat. In other words, I'm not looking at it. I just know where everything is, and I don't have a pattern.
Yep.
Which is great. Like, I can play the key of C, like, just go up like this, and then be stuck on the top, Or I can go up here and be stuck on the top, and I try to do all that stuff without looking, just kind of box myself into a corner and say, how am I going to get all the way up to the high note? And so
Nice.
it's just good for mental exercise. It's not working on my chops at all.
Yep.
It's just working on my brain to just get everything dialed in. And once you have those major scales done, then you have all the modes,
Yep. So are you taking advantage of the fact that the guitar kind of repeats, like, are you doing like 2-string groups and then just moving it to the next 2 strings and moving it up a couple of frets and doing that to get that creeping up the fretboard?
I don't think so. I think I'm just kind of trying to find where the next note is and where's the easiest place to play it.
Yeah.
Let's just take the key of, like, for instance, if I take the key of F, and it would be like this. There's definitely not the 3 notes per string, because I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Only 3 there, 1, 2, 3, so it's kind of whatever I can slide to or reach from where I'm at. But you think about that. All right, that's the key of F. So the Dorian mode would be G minor, right? And I can play the scale like this. Right, I can play the scale like that. But then I kind of want to learn the same scale that way, and then maybe go farther. And then come up with a line, and the line might be that sucked. Yeah, I suck today. Find when I'm trying to explain this stuff.
Sure. I think that lens flare is about to overtake us before too long, as cool as it looks.
I got a thing I can do, and tell me if this helps.
That totally helped. Whatever you just did then. Did you close a blind?
Well, I made this secondary blind go up while the other. Oh yeah, I look cooler now, and I have a light I can turn on if.
That looks fine. That looks fine. Yeah. Cool. Carl, you said about in the early days and rubbing shoulders with Eddie Van Halen and David Lee Roth. Did you know back then that these guys are destined for big things?
I knew that David Lee Roth was kind of a class clown and, born entertainer kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I didn't appreciate how amazing Eddie Van Halen was at the time. But now I just can't believe how good the guy was. I mean, his time and his sound and his touch and his ideas, they were just killer. And if you listen to some of that stuff, like, whatever that tune is, Beautiful Girl or something.
Yep.
You listen to that opening rhythm guitar, and you just go, God, man, his time is so locked in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I took the time to, now that I have the technology at my fingertips, to slow down eruption and work it out myself. I've seen transcriptions and it's like, no, that's not right. That's not right. So I took the time to actually learn it myself. And what gets me is some of those lightning fast runs, when you slow it down, how swung it is. It's amazing.
Yeah, he just had a feel, didn't he? He really had a great feel.
Yeah.
I recently read a book that was by, it's called, it's Ted Templeman's book. And of course, he produced all those albums. And he got Eruption on tape just by accident. He goes, "What
Wow.
the heck is that?" And he just pushed the tape deck on and started rolling tape. Then he didn't think it was much of anything, just him fooling around. But
Wow.
anyway, so yeah, I mean, I've played with a lot of great players: Larry Carlton, Robin Ford, Brian May, Steve Morse. All these heavy cats, and you can kind of analyze and see. If you pay real good attention, you kind of see what it is that makes them who they are, and whether it's choice of notes or touch or tone or bending or vibrato is a huge thing.
Yep. It's funny you should mention Brian May. I was a Brian May impersonator in a Queen international touring Queen band for a while, and I was never that much of a big fan. I heard the hits on the radio, etc. But when it came time to learning it, and as I say, using the technology available now and slowing things down, looping them, having them speed up slightly, and copying just the vibrato and everything. So it's just got the record. Yeah. It gave me a really new appreciation for Brian.
Yeah, what a great musician. I love him.
Yeah,
just so
absolutely.
Cool. That music really holds up too.
It does.
So,
it does. Yeah. Actually, I have people always comment about the Buckethead looking guy back there, and that's actually my old Brian May wig. I just needed somewhere to keep it, so I put it up there and just went, oh, that almost looks like Buckethead.
yeah, it does look like, because he has a Kentucky Fried Chicken head, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Now, Carl, you're quite known as a session player. How did that all come about for you?
Yeah, I did that for a whole lot of years, and I'm still doing it, but not 10 sessions a week. I was living down south of LA a little bit in a place called Orange County, and that had the ability to play jazz a lot. I was trying to play standards and play with bass and drums and keyboards and just learn, practice all day, play all night, that kind of thing. But I realized that I became kind of a big fish in a small pond, and I realized the heavy cats are up in LA, and they're the ones doing the sessions, because it's really fantastic work in terms of how the union works and residuals and royalties. It's more of a 9-to-5 job than stay out till 2 a.m. every night in a bar, So I moved up there, up here to LA area, and I just started to kind of hang around with the cats, and I had a good judgment of character to where I could say, this guy's going somewhere. I'm going to hitch my train to him, And I started hitching my train to guys that were doing TV work and movie work and jingle work and record date work. And, you just kind of keep after them and talk to them. And I put together a little jam situation where I could get like Vinnie Caliuta to come over and play one day. And then, I'd say so-and-so's coming over, and I'd get some heavier guys than me just so they could see how I play.
Yep.
And that was a good thing to do. So I kind of worked that angle for a while, and then I got in a band that was pretty high profile, this kind of R&B saxophone player named Richard Elliott. And that led to another band. And so I was playing a few nights a month or 4 nights a month, maybe, with some high profile bands. And then one day I remember that I get this phone call from a keyboard player saying, I'm here at Craig Saffin's studio, and he wants to know, do you play the charango? And I said, how many strings does it have? And he goes, 8. And I said, you got one? And he goes, yeah, he has one. I go, I'll be right over. So I came over and I played on this movie called Stand and Deliver. And I just tuned the charango to a guitar kind of a thing and figured out how to read music like what he was doing there. And I said to the guy, I said, this movie, Stand and Deliver, it's got this Latin vibe. What might be cool is some Santana-style electric guitar. I said that because my SG, which Santana was playing in his early days, was in the car.
Cool.
In my car. And I had a little Princeton amp or something. So sure enough, I went and got it, and he loved it. And I played on the rest of the movie, and then he said, hey, I'm starting a TV show next week called Cheers, and I'd like you to play on it. And I played on the next 9 years of Cheers. And what begins to happen is that contractor who's making the calls, he gets me to another one and then another one. And pretty soon I'm doing a lot of TV, which blossoms into movies, which is even better work. And then on the side doing jingles, which can be extremely high paying because if they keep using it, you get paid every time they change the voiceover. And, you start to kind of work your way into the record world to where you're playing on different records and stuff. And then what sort of killed it for me was I decided that I would, I started making my own records, and that was in the 80s. But by the late 90s, I started taking my band out on the road. I started to be able to tour, whether it was USA or Europe or whatever. And those tours got more and more until, I was out 3 or 4 months a year. And the years I wasn't, Supertramp would go out, and I had joined Supertramp in 1985. And so they'd go out for 4 months every few years. And so I started to be gone. And when you're gone, you can't really be that first call guy.
Sure.
What happens is the guy, they call the substitute guy. And if he plays maybe on the demo, they got to get him to do the final, and if it's a jingle or, so you start having to turn stuff down. And I remember my wife calling me. I was in Europe playing with my band, and she goes, "Man, you got called for a 5-day double sessions at Warner Brothers, which is going to pay, really good money. Maybe, well, those 5 days would have paid more than my entire tour.
Yeah,
I just have gone for 3 weeks or something, because I pay my guys well, and I got to rent the tour bus, and I got to pay for gas and hotels and all this stuff, right? So what I end up with was going to be less than I would have made had I stayed home. But I just kind of sat back and analyzed it and went, I get to play my own songs in front of the whole front row that's singing along to a song I wrote in my kitchen 5 years ago. That's more self-satisfying and gratifying and just righteous feeling than sitting there with headphones reading the music that might go like, that might be the cue you're reading, and you go, all right, next cue, like on a TV show or a movie date or something like that. So, those kind of sessions are well paying, but one of our jokes is after you do something like that, you go, it's great to play again, So playing at the height of my ability in front of an audience, my own music was worth it to kind of break away from the studio business. Having said that, in August, I did 5 sessions on a project, and I did another project in July. So I'm still kind of toes in the water on the studio scene, but I'm leaving October 3rd for 5 weeks, and I've already had to turn down a session or 2 in October. So, but it doesn't bother me anymore. I go, you know what? That's all fine. That's, let somebody else have that fun and make that money.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, you mentioned Cheers. Is that you playing those guitar licks in between?
Yeah.
Oh man, for years I was wondering who that was.
Yeah, I could send you. I'm on Seinfeld. I'm on all kinds of sitcoms and stuff like that, and hundreds of movies and stuff. So, that's kind of the daily grind. It's great when you get a record date and you can get to play with the Bee Gees or Cher or, somebody famous and get to do that. But the kind of daily grind is sort of the movies and TV and jingle stuff, that I was doing.
Yep.
So, but luckily for me, it was pretty much every day.
Nice. So, I worked in jingles for a while myself. I worked for a company, and you're talking about the recurring payment thing coming in. Yeah, it wasn't for me. I signed all those rights away to the company, unfortunately. But that would be a nice thing every time there was a revision made.
Yeah.
But I know.
This guy called me and said, "Can you play in the style of Chet Atkins?" And I was actually like, my wife, we had just been married. She thinks she's married this artist with integrity and all this stuff. And I was playing like, and she goes, "What are you doing? That's the corniest stuff I've ever heard. That's the stuff my dad listens to. And I said, honey, this is Chet. This is really important. I got to know this stuff. And she goes, nah, whatever. So she leaves, and about an hour later, the phone rings, and it's a guy saying, can you play in the style of Chet Atkins? And I'm going, listen, I am now.
Nice.
I played something like that, and he goes, you're hired. Come down to Capitol Records Studio B, bring an acoustic guitar. We're going to do the Albertsons supermarket theme. So that was nothing more than just this little ditty. And he had it written in the key of C, and it went like. It's like, it's Joe Albertson's supermarket, like that, right? So I said, well, if I'm going to do the Chet thing, maybe I'll use some open strings. How about if I arrange it like this? Whatever. Let's see. Whatever. I figured it out, right?
Yep.
I did a 30-second and a 60-second version of that, and I came home and told my wife, hey, I made $165 today in about 45 minutes doing, because that's double scale. When you're the only musician on the session, you get double scale. So she goes, yeah, whatever. It's still corny, right? But little did I know that every time they changed the voiceover, the copy, I got paid again as if I was there.
Nice.
And they changed it in the Northwest, the Southwest, the Midwest, the South, the Northeast, the Southwest. So there's like 6 territories where they're using my little bed and saying, this week, he's like, this week at Albertsons, toilet paper and chuck steak, and I just kept getting paid and paid and paid for the next 4.5 years. It was a great scam, what a racket, because they used that for the next 4.5 years. And man, I was making almost $2,000 a month every month from that thing. And we bought a house. We went, hey, this is coming from heaven. So
great,
anyway,
great.
It was
So speaking of sessions, do you do sessions from home? Do you have a home studio set up?
I do, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it took me a while to get into that because I just was kicking and screaming, and I had this philosophy that my job is to get a sound and a tone and a touch and a feel on the guitar. I'm going to hire an engineer.
Yep.
So I put together a Pro Tools rig and hired engineers every time I'd get a session at home. And then eventually I was doing this guy's record and sent the engineer home and sent him the tracks. And he goes, I want you to be much more aggressive on the solo. And I go, well, I can't. I've sent the engineer home. And he goes, come on, you can do it. So I just put my feet in, made some calls, asked some questions, and now I can do it. And I really enjoy it.
Nice.
So,
and when you're doing sessions from home, are you recording real amps? Are you using simulators?
So I do record some real amps. I've got a little scene where I can easily set up a mic and do that. And I have about 50 amps here.
Nice.
It's out of control. I got way too many amps.
Yeah.
But my producer buddy was telling me that we should take maybe the top 25 or 30 of my amps and profile them into the Kemper.
Nice.
And I go, why? I'm not that guy. I'm the real thing. And he goes, because there's a market for, your signature sounds. There's a market for the Carl Verheyen amp collection, and we could sell it. And so he bought one, brought it out here, and we went to Studio 2 at Sunset Sound, which is where all that Van Halen stuff was recorded,
yep,
among many, many other things. And we recorded it right in that room with 5 different microphones. Take each one of my amps. Now, I got 4 Fender Princetons. We just used 2 because they sound a little bit different.
Yep.
I got 2 AC30s. I got 5 Marshalls. We just took the 3 of the ones that are different.
Yep.
I got 2 Fender Twins. We took 1. So we just kind of We narrowed it down to 28, but we recorded it with them with 5 microphones each. And I'm going, yeah, good. We got a product. This is cool. Then we came home and plugged it into my little home studio scene. And I went, oh my God, this sounds really good. I can actually use this stuff.
Yep.
So my theory now is that I will always use a real studio to record, obviously, bass, drums, and keyboards, and most of me. Solos, stuff where you just need a room, where you need to manipulate sound in the room. Because that's one thing that none of these profilers or anything, they just don't do that, right?
Sure. Yep.
But it is really cool to be able to say, well, I have this little simple part, and it's just it just goes like a I might be able to record an acoustic 12-string, say, at the studio or here with a microphone, and then use my Rickenbacker 12-string or something to go through the Kemper with some compression and kind of get that. Actually, Roger McGuinn from the Byrds, who was a huge influence on me, he never even used an amp. So
really?
Turn and Mr. Tambourine Man, all that stuff is Rickenbacker straight into a LA2A compressor.
Wow, I didn't know that.
With the Rickenbacker, and so it's compressed and right in your face, and it jumps out of the radio at me. Tom Petty the same way. Those guys they just go direct with those Rickies.
Nice. And have you taken to using the Kemper Live?
Nah.
No.
I want to hear. I want to beat up the ears in the back of my knees, stand in front of amplifiers. I use a giant rig, a 4 amplifier rig.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's stereo clean, like what I've been doing is 2 4x12s, and they're stereo cabinets. So the outside 2 sets of 12s are the clean sound, and so. For many years, I used combos like 2 AC30s or 2 twins or a twin and an AC30. And then I just got a couple of heads. And I was using a high watt, 100 watt, super clean, and a Fender Showman, another super clean amp, right? And recently I changed to 2 Showmans, which is really more of the Fender-y sound.
Yeah.
And those are going through 2 reverbs and a chorus to make them stereo and stereo delay after the guitar. So, and before the amp. So, I hit this little rack with some of that stuff and go into the 2 Fenders, and those are the outside 2. The inside 2 are kind of a wet, dry distortion thing where I go straight into an amp after some pedals. And I use this thing called a Fryette power station. Have you ever heard of that?
I've got one right there.
They're just amazing, aren't they?
They are. Yeah. Funnily enough, I've got a Kemper right here as well. Kemper stage. Yeah. And the power station right there. Yeah.
Right. You're dialed, man. So the power station allows me to go in with my straight speaker out, so I'm getting my power tubes on the amp, whether it's a Marshall. I love this Dr. Z amps.
Oh, yeah.
I have a few of the amps, and I use one of those for my distortion. The power tubes heating up just sound amazing. So now in the effects loop of that, I can put a little MXR reverb, but I can also go line out into like a Lexicon PCM41 studio quality delay. Now I'm at line level, so I need to go into a power amp. And lately I've been using basically the effects return of a 100 watt Marshall.
Yep.
And so now one cabinet, the inner 2 sides of the 4x12s. One has the straight amp sound with a little reverb in the effects loop, and the other has the delay sound, but mixed in with the sound. So it's kind of wet, dry, but the dry has reverb on it now. So
cool.
It's really what you want. It's really what I want to hear. It's exact. I get all the ambience I need and everything. So I've been taking a 100 watt Marshall from 1969, but my amp tech said, "You're crazy, man. These things are $6,000. That's the amp Hendrix used. That's the amp Van Halen used. What are you doing?"
Yep.
And I said, "Well, it's just a beautiful piece of furniture, and I hate to leave it home. So,
Wow.
I've into effects return that was modified that way. So
Yeah.
you know,
That's a lot of gear to be carting around. But
yeah, I got people for that.
yeah, obviously I don't. I don't. It's funny. All the gear I have here, I've got two Marshall boxes that I run in stereo and two 4x12s. And when I wheel those in, people look at me and just go, man, you can't use that here. That's just too loud, too loud. It's like, no, it's not about volume. I can actually have those turned down, spread, like facing different directions, and I can hear myself all over the stage without being so loud. So it's actually quieter.
I know it's actually a really great thing to do, and I can do the same rig with two 212 cabinets that I have that are stereo 212 cabinets, and I don't like it as much because they're down on the ground and you don't hear what you want to hear coming at you. So
yeah.
But I talked to Eric Johnson about this a little while ago, and he and I were doing a festival together. And I said, what I really like is to stand on stage with my gear over there to my right. And I like to hear what it's doing in the room as opposed to standing in front of it.
Yep.
So the small stages when you got to stand in front of it aren't as inspiring as when you can get out to like in front of the ride cymbal of the drummer and just kind of, people can see him. I'm not covering him, but I'm there and my rig's over here. That's my favorite, so.
Yeah. I know what you mean about filling the room. When I was doing the Queen show, I eventually, instead of using the backline AC30s that we'd always have, I was just using the Kemper and I'd have just some AC30s for show. But I would play opening chord of Radio Gaga, which I think is like an F-Add 9, and I would just hear the stereo delays fill the room, and that was a nice
a great
sound.
feeling.
It is, absolutely. Carl, what's the Strat you got in your hand right now?
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
This is the LSL Carl Verheyen model, which is basically a Strat that's patterned after my 61 Strat. But I also have a 58 Strat, and so it's got like the back pick of capacity of that. Mm-hmm. And I have a 65 Strat, which is right here. And so it's got the neck pickup of this one. So I really went, not the actual neck pickup. I had to measure the output here and wind a pickup that does that. So this guitar is as close to home for me as my 61 Strat, which has the perfect neck. And so I'm a big fan of these LSL guitars. They're made here in LA. And I also have, I've got a maple neck one that's really cool too. And the thing about the maple neck one, it's a little more focused for distortion.
Okay.
I can let me see if I can put a little hair on it right here.
That's a great term. Everyone seems to say that. Put a bit of hair on it, bit of fur around it. I love that term.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, this guitar, if it's a real distorted thing, I'll grab this one, and so I'm going to take two of them on the road and an SG.
Nice.
Good company. So.
Yeah. I'm not much the Gibson guy, but if I was to play a Gibson, it'd be an SG.
Yeah, because I find sitting down with the Les Paul, like in the studio, they feel like they're overheard for me.
Sure.
They don't feel like they're not sitting out on my body with the ability to reach what I need to reach.
I find the SG's the opposite. It feels like it's parked the other way.
Yeah, it's sort of like the high stuff is right in front of you there, that kind of stuff. So anyway, so yeah, man, it's it's a lifelong quest to find your sound and find your gear and get it all dialed in, and then your ears change and you want to change. So
yeah. So Carl, I'm a Strat guy through and through, and I like the idea of the vintage 6-screw. Just in my mind, there's more contact with the body. Is that what you got there?
Yeah, I talked to some guys at Fender who said that the 2-screw bridge was a mistake. They were just trying to copy Kaler and Floyd Rose.
Yeah, right.
They were trying to look like those so that the kids would go, hey, that's the same kind of deal.
Yeah.
But they agree that the 6-screw bridge is the way to go.
Yeah. So what a big turning point for me in getting my 6-screw bridge staying in tune and feeling good was a video that I stumbled upon on YouTube of yours explaining. Yeah. For people who haven't seen that, do you want to give us a rundown on how you set up your bridge?
Yeah. Well, this guitar has a plate on the back, but most of my Strats don't. I don't know why this one's on here, but basically by adjusting the claw, I'm able to get a minor third on my G string, and by keep continuing adjusting on my B string, I get a whole step, and I get a half step on my E string. And that enables me to get all kinds of different licks. And what I've been really studying lately and working on lately is double stop stuff, because if I'm in the key of E, I can go, which is basically.
Oh, that's great.
So I can go like this.
Oh.
And so the more I mess with it, the more I find all kinds of different ways to I've worked out a lot of those kind of licks. Let me turn on the light. It's starting to get a little dark. So that became a real necessity to me to have the wang bar on my Strats, because if I play on a telly, which I love to do, I'm always reaching for it, And the other thing that's really beautiful is the ability to just shake stuff. Just shake a chord with a little bit of vibrato like that. I think that's really cool.
Well,
when I don't have it, so
it stands out that you've got a beautiful touch when using the bar there. It's some people just grab it and wiggle the hell out of it. We talked about Brian May before. I really admire his subtle use of the vibrato bar, and that's really nice. Man, that pulling up the double stop thing, that is great.
That's a cool thing. Yeah, I got a new song that I'm going to record really soon where it's using that like crazy, because you can go, So I did all kinds of stuff you can do. Man. It's fun.
That's
I'm
absolutely awesome.
I'm just cracking the surface of it now. Just kind of getting into it and going, wow. Well, there's all kinds of chords that you can bend to. If you do it right. For instance, in the key of A, I could just play a D and an F sharp and go. Just kind of double stop stuff, and it's fun. There's a lot more to learn. I'm gonna know more next time we talk.
Cool. So Carl, you mentioned working on new music. Where could people find that?
Well, I just came out with an album just this year called Sundial, and it was pretty much recorded during the COVID period. And I went to Criteria Studios down there where Layla was done in Miami. And I did a lot at Sunset Sound here, which is my home base. And I even did some I even recorded some at Sweetwater Studios, which is in Indiana, and just kind of all over the place. And anyway, it's a very eclectic album in that it's not like a blues album or a rock album or a jazz album or anything, but it's all over the place, and I really like that. I mean, I set out to say this is kind of where I'm at in 2021, So
Nice.
And I recorded some background vocals by a couple of background singers that I really like, and it's in the title tune. The title tune is called Sundial, and the background singers, I'm a guy that'll write out the parts for them to sing, so that we get to the studio and I'm going, well, try this. No, here's what I want, and if it doesn't work, here's what it might work. So I try to save studio time and money by coming in very prepared. So these girls, I mean, they just opened up and gave me oohs. And then at a certain point in this title tune, they switched to ahs, from ooh to ah. And when it happens, it's like, it's the greatest feeling. I'm like very moved. And I've listened to this song because we mixed it, so I had to hear it 100 times. Every time I hear it, I get the chills, and it makes me feel good.
Awesome.
It's at the end of the tune Sundial, and the tune goes like, it goes like, that's the vamp, Afternoon as it slips away. Sundown shadows fade away. Anyway, it's kind of a quirky, strange little tune, but it's very different, in other words. But when the chorus comes around, and you've heard it a few times, and at the end, when they start doing those oohs and ahs, it's just magical, man. So I'm really proud of it.
I do a bit of mixing myself, and I can actually, without hearing the tune, I can picture how that would just open things up. There'd be more top end from the ah vowel come in, and that would just make things open up.
Yeah, I sang a lot of background vocals in Supertramp, and the way they do it, when there's multiple people doing ah, they want you to go ah, because it becomes ah.
Okay.
So they taught me a lot of little things like that. And like, don't sing ah, sing ah, like
Cool.
With multiple people doing that, it sounds like ah.
Yeah,
Weird
right.
how that happens.
Yeah.
Give a little bit, So there's that. There's those kind of little things they've got going on, and I learned some good tips from them.
Awesome.
Over the
Awesome. It just popped into my head then that when I was just learning to play guitar, and you first learn a D chord and you start moving things around, just the little breakdown, ding a ding, ding a ding, ding ding ding. That's one of the first things I probably learnt for myself, just hearing it on the radio and going, oh, it kind of sounds like, yeah.
We call that hippie chords.
Yeah.
Like hippie chords are like when you go. In other words, you've got an open string thing and you're just moving a form around. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's it. Yeah. That's a fun band playing because you just pick up your acoustic 12-string go, and 20,000 people stand up right at once. It's pretty fun to see that. Like, wow, the effect that has, just A to D, and in that strum, and 20,000 people get to their feet, every single night.
That's
really
awesome.
amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. Carl, pedal-wise, are you using much on the floor pedals?
Well, I try to keep it to a minimum. I've got an A-B system,
Yep.
a lot. And so that goes to, the A is my clean, and it goes through a wah-wah and then through the A-B box, and then it goes to this one pedal, a Zen drive, which makes my clean a little grungy when I need it.
Yep.
And then my dirty side has 4 distortion pedals, and that goes out to the amp. So, and that's it. But I also have a studio pedal board, a Supertramp pedal board, a mini pedal board that fits in a computer bag, And a pedal board I don't use too much anymore for my acoustic rig, which I don't bother with too much anymore. It's just more stuff to set up that I don't need. If I'm doing an acoustic guitar show, I'll bring that pedal board. You know, it has a few little things on it. But yeah, I mean, I'd rather, you know, live, I'd rather not have a delay on the floor and reverb on the floor, because I'd rather have those, you know, better quality stuff than a pedal. But now there's some amazing, you know, I'm playing out of a carbon copy here.
Oh, love them.
Those are good. They're dark, you know.
They are. They are.
Really good distortion, you know. So.
Yep. I've got one sitting over my little rack of pedals over there, and I've got, you know, all these Line 6, what's that called, an HX effects down there, and there's just something about that carbon copy that none of my digital emulations can recreate. That kind of factor that happens on each repeat.
Analog thing that happens. Yeah. I think pedals that are modeling pedals, I think they're not so happening. You know, I've plugged them in the studio and had the engineer go, "What happened to your sound?" And I go, "Oh, I plugged this thing in." They go, "Oh, get rid of that." You know, so you know, they're hearing it coming back over speakers that way. So Anyway,
so you mentioned you have a studio pedal board. I'd be interested to hear what's on that.
Yeah, let me see. I could probably pick it up here. I haven't changed it in years, and it runs a big rack, and so if needed. So let's see. It's got a volume pedal and a wah-wah pedal, and then it's got this T-Rex Mudhoney, which is a great distortion pedal.
Wow.
An Analog Man King of Tone, Providence Chrono Delay, which is really great in the studio because you can get all kinds of timing issues going, and then a Dark Echo, and that's it, and a tuner. And so this thing is kind of more, you know, if I'm doing this, if I'm doing like a film date or something where you need every sound known to man, I still have an old 80s style rack that is, you know, 16 space, and this will go in front of it. But I use this. I mean, I'm not really a volume pedal guy unless I have to be. I'd rather just do it with the tone knob with the knob on the guitar.
Yep.
So that gives me what I need for, you know, delay and, you know, hopefully reverb in the amp. But I also have a little mini pedal board that's super cool. It's just got tiny tuner, distortion, secondary distortion, reverb, and delay and reverb. And that thing, it fits in a computer bag. It's 10 inches by 10 inches.
Oh, cool.
That really rocks.
Yeah.
So anyways.
So
man.
You mentioned you've got the rack system as well. And you did spy my little ADA back there. I was a rack guy back in the late 80s, all through the 90s with my little ADA setup. Are you running the effects in that? Is that all going serial, or are all the time-based effects going into a mixer?
It's one of those deals. It's all going into a mixer thing. And, you know, I was Bob Bradshaw's second customer ever.
Wow.
So Buzzy Featon came into a club and he goes, "You know what you need? Programmable effects loops." And I know just the guy, and he had already gotten it. And so he sent me over to Bob Bradshaw, and Bob was, you know, building racks and actually drilling holes into the pedal boards himself and putting buttons in. And then pretty soon he gets MIDI going, and then that was all through the 80s. And then one time my band was playing at this huge club called Billboard Live on Sunset Boulevard. And it was our record release party for, like, I don't know, the second record maybe. And so it was late 80s, I guess, maybe 89 or something. And so I had my entire show programmed in. Preset 01 is the intro. 02 is the second verse, and then 03 is the solo. You know how you do.
Yep.
And, you know, reverbs change, delays change, and the only one who knows about that is me.
Yeah.
The only one who hears the difference is me. So some stagehand tripped over the power cable, and it went off and on the whole Bradshaw rack, and it geeked all the programs. Nothing.
Oh.
So 15 minutes to showtime, you know, or 20 minutes, or maybe an hour. And I got it occurred to me that playing my guitar straight through all that gear didn't sound good. What you were listening to was the wiggle effects, the choruses and the harmonizer and the delay and all that stuff. So I go, what do I do? What do I do? And they go, well, we have this Fender Twin. And I had a tube screamer and a delay pedal or something in my car, and I plugged them together, and we did the whole show that way.
Yeah.
You know, the whole concert. And I had all these people going, man, you've never sounded better.
Wow. Wow.
And then I realized, you know, my 61 Strat through, you know, one of these Fender Princetons, you know, I've got two of them in my little studio here. You know, my 61 Strat right through that sounded better than $60,000 worth of rack gear. And so at that moment, I just decided, all right, I'm mothballing this stuff and I'm going to find some effects that are just simpler. And also, you know, it occurred to me while touring with Supertramp in the mid 80s in Spain, if something goes down in New York City or Spain or Italy or South America, there's nobody that can fix that. And so I make sure that my live rig, I really understand the signal chain.
Yep.
If something goes down, I can bypass this and go straight out to here or whatever, you know, and
yep.
sometimes carry even an extra amp that can be plugged in place, you know. So
yeah, I do that. I got a little redundancy rig, which is just an iPad. I set up, with two big Marshall boxes, all that type of stereo setup, but then right beside it, just in case, with a 30-foot cable connected to it, is a little iPad rig, so that if it goes down, nobody would even notice.
It's just way to go. Yeah. Are you playing a lot? Are you gigging a lot?
With the lockdowns, it's made it hard. I play for a lot of 80s pop artists, Australian pop artists over here, but they're all based in Victoria. And I did have a gig up this way booked only about a month ago, and it was heartbreaking. They had a football game less than a mile away from my place here. 30,000 people. Yeah, it's okay. No one will get COVID at the football. 2 days later, I'm playing a big show at the big showroom at the casino, local casino, and they wouldn't let the artists into the state. And it was just like,
oh my God.
If only we were kicking balls around, you know?
Yeah, man. What a shame. Wow.
Yeah.
My wife has pretty much got dinner ready. Can I invite myself back on? At
Absolutely, time? Carl. Absolutely.
Get started.
Yeah, I know. Mate, to tell you the truth, a lot of these go for about 3 hours because it just keeps going. Yeah. And I did have a couple of questions put aside there that people had.
Oh, go ahead and fire.
Yeah, okay. There's only a couple here, mate, so it'll just be really quick. The first, there was a bit of a shout out on the tremolo setup thing, which we've already touched on. Can you talk a little about your online school?
Oh, yeah. So I have this little CV Academy, and we've recorded probably 270 videos that are general. I mean, there's about 10 long form ones that are 45 minutes to an hour, but most of them are ideas from my lick book, you know, like that one I showed you in F minor, and how to expand on things and minor, major, dominant lick book ideas. But then I also have chapters on like what I learned from. So I'll say what I learned from Derek Trucks or Dwayne Allman or Eric Clapton or Chet Atkins or Joe Pass or Wes Montgomery or Brian May, or, you know, and you take all the artistic signatures. Like for somebody like Clapton, it was his vibrato just killed me. I couldn't phrase that way. And for somebody like Albert King, it was these incredible major third bends he was doing in crosscut saw. So I'll just talk about that. Like, you know, I could give you a whole story about Albert King, but, you know, just this is what I learned from him, the ability to do those major third bends, you know.
Nice.
And I got a bunch of rhythm guitar stuff on there. I've recently transferred it all over to TrueFire. So I have it not only on TrueFire in various levels of, you know, financial, like you can get this much stuff for $15, for $29 you can get everything, and for $54 you can get an interactive lesson with me once a month where you send me a video, I critique it, send you a video, that kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, and the CV Academy that's on my website, it's not nearly as interactive, but it's cool though. You get everything anyway.
Yep. So you'd rather direct people to TrueFire to get a hold of you then?
I don't know. I'm torn because I like the subscription based thing coming straight to me as opposed to them taking money out.
Yeah.
Either way is fine. I'm good. My goal is to pass on the knowledge and make people better guitar players.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And the internet has been great for that, I must say.
Yeah.
There was a quick question there. Do you use the bright switch on black face Fender amps?
Not too often. Not unless it's people say the bright switch is for Gibsons, is for humbuckers. And for Fender guitars, you don't need it. So for the most part, I don't fire that up. Every once in a while, if you got really dead strings or the room seems really dark and dead, I might use it and turn down the treble. But it always adds sort of a little ping to it that I don't appreciate.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Carl, I will let you get going, mate. There was another question about some of your favorite guitar players and amps, but I think you've touched on a bit of that if that person wants to go back and watch this. Speaking of which, folks, these little chats are available on your favorite podcast sites as audio-only versions. I know some people can't actually watch it on YouTube and could just listen as they're working away on things. But I just want to say thank you very much for your time, Carl. It's been great talking to you, mate.
Yeah, let's do this again.
Let's do it, please. Yes, I will do because, as I said, I sometimes have to cut people off after 3 hours, and they're like, "I've got to come back. I really enjoyed talking."
I know I could go all night too. I'm one of those guys.
Yeah,
just
awesome.
wind me up.
Yeah,
I'm off. Great. So.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks to Carl. Hey, and I'm going to hit my magic button. I'm going to give a little shout out to Summer Cable, Chicken Picks, and EC Guitars before I go for sponsoring the show. And I'm going to hit my little end screen button, which calls up this really cool thing like this. Go.